The government's credit rating downgraded. I'm Clint Watson, live in the studio with the story.
The gaming bill hits Parliament.
And we've got reaction to the bill. The Bahamas Tonight, the National Report starts now live.
Now in HD. ZNS Network presents The Bahamas Tonight. This portion of the news brought to you by BTC Every Day.
Moody's downgrades the Bahamas' rating but says the economic outlook is stable, an improvement from negative. Good evening, everyone. I'm Candino Noel.
And good evening, Bahamas. I'm Altaviz Munnings. The rating done by Moody's Investor Service used several key drivers for the downgrade. Continued deterioration of the government's balance sheet with debt and interest burdens that now exceed those of most Baa rated peers.
In addition to that, subdued economic growth contributed to the downgrade, which has been an important factor in the weakening of government's balance sheets.
Well, Clint Watson is joining us live in studio with all the details. Clint, tell us what this all means.
No surprise here, Altaviz Candino. What we can tell you is Moody's is attributing the downgrade to the weakening of the government's fiscal strength as reflected by the significant increase in sovereign debt and interest burdens. The GDP ratio has increased from 31.7% in 2007 to 59% in 2013, and Moody's expects it to peak in 2015. At this level, it is almost 20 percent points above the median for Baa-rated sovereigns, 39.5% in 2013. Meantime, as the debt stock increased, the interest burden on government debt has risen during the same time period. Interest payments now represent over 14% of government revenues compared to 9.3% in 2007. This deterioration lowering the ability of government to confront any potential shocks. The second key driver is a weak economic recovery. Following the 2008 recession, annual growth averaged just 1.1% in the 4 years through 2013. This underperformance negatively impacted government revenues, leading to high current and capital expenditures by the government to support the economy. As a consequence, the fiscal deficit widened to 6.3% of GDP in fiscal 2012-2013, while Moody's estimates that the deficit narrowed to 5.4% in fiscal 2013-2014. This shortfall is still more than double the median for similarly rated peers. Now, the stable outlook reflects Moody's expectation that the medium-term fiscal consolidation plan will contain the government's debt burden in fiscal 2015 and afterwards will lead to a gradual reduction in the debt-to-GDP ratio. The rating outlook also anticipates that real GDP growth will strengthen somewhat in 2015, owing a large part to the ongoing recovery in economic growth in the U.S., closely correlated with tourist arrivals in the Bahamas. Key elements of the fiscal stabilization plan include expenditure controls that seek to increase the efficiency of public spending. In addition, government intends to introduce a 7.5% value-added tax in 2015. Nonetheless, even with an effective implementation of fiscal reforms, the Bahamas' debt and interest burdens will remain at levels significantly weaker than most Baa rating peers over the next 2 years at least, and over the medium term as well. Now, the government is responding to this latest development in a statement. They stress that the credit rating remains at investment grade. That's a good thing. Government says planned fiscal reforms will hopefully reduce the deficit and support a gradual reduction in the government's debt burden over the coming years. Now, the government is of the view the recent downgrade underscores the need for these reforms to be implemented. Once that happens, the Bahamian economy should strengthen. And I can tell you, Altaviz, that's an interesting factor here because we know that means value-added tax is a much-needed resource coming into play in order to help make this happen. Reporting live in the newsroom, I'm Clint Watson. Back to you, Altaviz.
Thank you so much. Great reporting today, Clint.
All right, in other news tonight, the establishment of a national lottery to be managed by a company under contract is but one of the new provisions included in the Gaming Bill 2014. The long-awaited legislation was tabled in Parliament this morning. As Carla Palmer tells us, the government has as its ultimate objective advancing the industry for the benefit of all Bahamians.
The new new Gaming Bill 2014 replaces the original one tabled in the House of Assembly in October last year. In tabling the bill, Member of Parliament for West Grand Bahama and Bimini, Minister Obi Wilshcombe, describes this new bill as cutting-edge and comprehensive, designed to more effectively control and revolutionize the industry to the benefit of Bahamians. He says while there have been several amendments to gaming since 1969, casinos have been affected, and the bill is seeking to address this.
The financial performance of the existing casinos has been severely affected by the global economic downturn, with revenue having declined across the board. The declining performance of the existing casinos in the Bahamas is also a function of the nature and content of the gaming dispensation for which the law currently makes provision, as well as the manner in which the industry is regulated, and the nation will be well served by the modernization thereof.
Minister Wilshcombe says the primary objectives to bringing regulations are simple: to create a streamlined industry, user-friendly regulatory regime.
1. Driving revenue so as to increase the tax base and stimulate job growth. 2. Creating a sustainable competitive advantage for the gaming sector in the Bahamas. And 3. Increasing tourism, using the gaming industry as a springboard.
In advancing the industry, specific measures have been proposed. These include, but are not limited to, providing for the dual rating of employees, imposing certain levies, tax exemptions, permitting licenses for betting online, and testing of gaming standards. More importantly, Minister Wilshcombe says, licenses will only be issued to a fully Bahamian-owned operator.
Provision has been made for various categories of license, as well as certificates of suitability, all of which are annually renewable and subject to such conditions as may be imposed, and all of which attract fees on an ongoing basis.
Minister Wilshcombe says the board will be responsible for the day-to-day running.
Mr. Speaker, in the context of licensing and the issue of certificates of suitability, the board is vested with the power to grant, refuse, suspend, and revoke employment licenses. However, in the context of applications for gaming, proxy gaming, mobile gaming, and licenses, and certificates of approval applied for by corporate entities, as well as approvals required in respect of gaming service providers, the ultimate decision is vested with the minister.
Taxes generated by license activity will reportedly be paid to the board itself, and Minister Wilshcombe says failure to comply will result in stiff penalty. I'm Carla Palmer for ZNS Network News.
The Bahamas Christian Council calling the tabling of the revised gaming bill a miscarriage of this country's democratic system.
Well, all dressed in black, members of the council sat through the House proceedings this morning in a silent protest as the minister responsible for gaming, the Honorable Obi Wilshcombe, outlined the revised bill. In January 2013, the Bahamian people voted no in a gambling referendum, a move the Christian Council says should have squashed any talks of regulating the industry.
What is democracy in our country, and where does it start and where does it end?
You will notice we are all wearing black today. We are mourning the death of democracy in the country, and we believe that with this thing going forward, the Prime Minister, I believe, is operating in an unprincipled way. I believe it is reckless. Having heard the Bahamian people, he asked them what did they think.
The Prime Minister is the representative of one of the poorest constituencies in the country. And this bill, should it pass, is going to result in the further impoverization of those people, and is going to cause them to just experience untold agony going after a hope that will not be realized.
Well, following a series of delays, Bahamas Senior Vice President of External Affairs Robert Sandy Sands says he was happy to witness the tabling of the revised gaming bill in Parliament today, as it will level the playing field for the Bahamas with three of the most profitable destinations in the world: Moscow, Singapore, and Las Vegas, Nevada.
Well, Mr. Sands says he looks forward to the passage of the bill as Bahamas moves ahead with its casino component.
The bill, once passed, allows us to proceed unimpeded with all the arrangements we have put in place. It would also stabilize the international community. It will work with the airlift component now that this particular regulation is in place. And it's one of those things that are critical to the future success of tourism. Frankly, this legitimizes all the work and preparations that not only Bahama, Atlantis, Genting, the other casinos in the Bahamas have done over this period of time. And the modernization of a bill that has not really been changed since 1969 is extremely significant. And being the most globally competitive gaming destination with the introduction of technology puts us at a very competitive advantage going forward.
Also from Parliament today, Prime Minister the Right Honorable Perry Christie announced some new measures in the House of Assembly that he believes will improve the judicial system and add to the government's efforts on combating crime. It's a situation, he says, requires serious attention and assured House members that it's something that the government is fully committed to. Janaea Noel Ferguson has that story.
So it's kill or be killed.
A harsh reality facing our justice system, says Prime Minister Perry Christie, as a number of criminals on bail have been gunned down in the street. Defending the government's swift justice initiative Wednesday in the House of Assembly, Mr. Christie acknowledged that the issue of bail is complex. He noted that police have also expressed concern over the present bail laws, as accused murderers and others accused of serious offenses are released on bail.
Because we know our country's reputation is being heavily dampened. Our young people are having their lives taken. They're all victims. The ones who kill, the ones who are killed, they're all victims. We are all responsible for trying to find the formula to address it. There is a revolving door that the justice system, who hears me now, must take into consideration when it comes down to the balance of the Constitution and the rights of the individual to know that there is sufficient evidence for all of us to see clearly that when people allegedly kill and are charged because you're innocent until proven guilty, but because the system fails in not having trials in sufficient period of time, 3 years, they are admitted to bail and they're killed.
10 criminal courts in the Anne's Barker building are still under construction to speed up criminal cases. MP for Montague Richard Lightburn raised the issue of the delay in the House.
And we can't deal with justice in a so-called swift manner when we don't even have the physical structures there to enable courts to sit. And it really must be addressed urgently.
A problematic roof, the Prime Minister said, is a part of the reason for delay. Following the murder of Latori Mackey, Deputy Director of Bahamas Information Services last week, the Prime Minister promised new crime-fighting policies.
So we are committing the resources of the country and skewing the resources to ensure that we are able to provide policing. Because we happen to believe that if you go to Cuba and you go to Haiti and you see the evidence, you turn around and you see a police officer, we have no alternative but to blanket New Providence with policing.
And from a legal standpoint, the Prime Minister said a number of changes are expected within the judicial system.
We are going to give criminal defendants access to public defenders, and we are institutionalizing it as opposed to the normal Crown brief. We are going to hire a number of people who will be available to do that work.
Janaea Noel Ferguson, ZNS Network News.
Did you know there's a shortage of vehicle license plates? Well, find out what the government is doing to fix that.
Also tonight, find out why this man was in court today. You're watching the Bahamas Tonight live.
This segment of the news is brought to you by Shell Quality Fuels.